Christmas time, be prepared to whine if your family picks to play rubbish games every time. Okay, enough singing. The festive season is just around the corner, and even if you don't celebrate Christmas yourself, it's still the time of year that you find yourself surrounded by friends and family looking for ways to entertain yourselves. Hopefully because you're watching this video in the future and the lockdown is lifted, but possibly just because you've been shut in with the same people since March. Yikes. There's an established list of games that always get pulled out over the festive period, and let's be honest, most of them are a bit rubbish. So with that in mind, we've provided some recommendations to replace those tired old boxes with some flashy new competitors that I guarantee you'll enjoy a lot more. So let's kick things off with... When you think of charades, what do you see? If you're anything like me, then you see a family gathered around in a living room with outdated wallpaper and old-timey furniture, chortling and fake laughter straight out of The Crown. Maybe it's the 1970s, maybe it's the 1870s. Either way, charades isn't exactly a game that exudes hip, modern coolness. It's the game you feel obliged to play because everyone from age 7 to 17 knows how it works, and you can't be bothered to try and teach them code names again. There's nothing necessarily bad about charades, it's just a bit boring and predictable. There are only so many times that you can mime out that scene from Titanic before your arms get tired. Guessing stuff is always fun, so what if there was a game that was like charades, but better? One word, game. The answer to that question sounds like Veronica. Monica for friends. No, wait, Monikers. Monikers takes charades and bolts on 2 more rounds for a party game that feels as familiar as those traditional classics, while also managing to be interesting and fresh if you've played them a billion times before. The other 2 rounds will also be familiar to you if you've ever played the likes of Taboo, Articulate or Codenames. In the first round, players describe as many answer cards to their team as they can without using the words on the card. So, massive squid that eats ships, also a rum. Kraken! Then they must try and describe the same stack of cards using just 1 word for each, so you might just say rum, and hope that your team remembers its connection to the sea monster. Finally, the last round is charades, you mime the same set of cards. Time to get those tentacle arms flailing. It's as simple as that. Part of what makes Monikers so amusing is the shared deck of cards that both teams draw from. Everyone gets to choose cards to include in the deck at the start of the game, so you'll know at least a handful of the answers coming up. At the same time, you're not guaranteed to draw the cards that you put in, so there's still plenty of unpredictability, and including an easy card might help your opponents. The cards go beyond your usual staples of charades and other games too, with modern references to specific bits of pop culture and even internet memes. The wild variety also makes for a far more entertaining party game. Try not to crack a smile at someone trying to mime drunk Jeff Goldblum, Roomba, or Doge. Even if you're not as online as your pals, the cards have helpful descriptions on, so nobody will be left feeling out of the joke. Plus, you can always skip rather than force your way through a card that you just don't get. The fact that the same cards are reshuffled into the deck for each new round adds to the humour as well, resulting in callbacks to the first round or an obscure action you did in the hope that your team will get it even faster, while trying not to give something away to the other team as well. Monikers is a lot of fun, the perfect meeting of classic party games with modern ideas for a game that you'll want to bring out more than once a year. Especially this year though, it's especially good because you can play it over video call without too much difficulty, making it a strong choice for a Christmas in lockdown. So gather around, flail your arms like a squid and fall about laughing at your grandparents' attempt to mime Netflix and chill. After this, you'll have only 1 word for charades: goodbye. Alright, it's time we talked about it. Monopoly kinda sucks. And that's not even really news, it was designed to be unplayable. Originally called The Landlord's Game and released in 1904 by Elizabeth Magie, it was designed to teach players about the crushing economic horror of Georgism and to show how the rental system enriches property owners and bleeds dry those that are forced to rent. All it took was some pretty shady business dealings to turn it into the monolith that we know today. A game that is so obnoxiously popular that it ironically has a pretty strong monopoly on the public view of board games itself. The problem is, a lot of people still like the idea of Monopoly. They like being able to flex their business muscles and build a financial empire at the expense of their friends and family. But regardless of your views on the pretty shaky politics of the game itself, it still fails to deliver a fun and worthwhile experience in our humble opinions. So how do we fix that? Well, there's a game that delivers a very similar but better experience, which has the potential to be just as conniving, but also way more kind. And it also wraps up a hell of a lot quicker to save you from sitting there for a full hour as Dad forces you to mortgage off every last property that you ever had. That game is Machi Koro, which literally translates to Dice Town, a pretty good summary of what you'll be doing in the game. On your turn, you roll 1 or 2 dice, which you're hoping will activate one of your properties and grab you some money, with which you buy more properties and so on and so forth. Gone into the looping roll and move board, which is instead replaced by a shop with all sorts of businesses up for grabs. There's farms and coffee shops, mines and factories, all with their own special ways of collecting coin. The main thing to note on each card though is the number on top. Much like landing on the spaces of Monopoly, by rolling the number at the top of the card on the dice, it gets activated and will start turning you some profit. Some will activate only on your turn, some will activate on anyone's turn, and some will even steal money from the person whose turn it is. The game follows a very snappy loop of player rolling their dice, an assortment of people around the table going woohoo, and then the player perusing the shop and adding to their portfolio. It's all the fun of property investment in Monopoly without the horrible drudge of waiting for players to go all the way around the board to maybe land on your square and then completely fly past it every time. With the dice being rolled, there's always a chance that your card will get activated, especially if it works on other players' turns. The game ends when one player has managed to pay for all 4 of the community projects in front of them, which feels a lot more wholesome than forcing everyone around the table into bankruptcy. Each of the 4 projects has their own ability that it'll unlock, the most important of which allowing you to roll 2 dice instead of just the 1 that you start with. And whilst they each grow in cost, you can unlock them in any order, which allows for some tactical decisions. That same philosophy is throughout. You can buy anything you like as long as you can afford it. There's even a finite amount of cards on offer of each type, so you could theoretically buy up every single card of one type and establish a monopoly. Overall, Machi Koro is a great game for beginners and will be a pretty relaxing and worthwhile experience for the more dedicated tabletop gamers, which makes it a perfect fit for a Christmas jaunt. It's easy to play, its cute minimalistic art style is a welcome change if you've been forced to look at Warhammer 40k Monopoly this Christmas, and you can be as kind or as cruel as you like while you play, and still have an equal chance of winning. So put that capitalist propaganda in the bin, and swap it for this slightly cuter and way better designed capitalist propaganda. Out of all the physical games that sit in your standard high street shops each year, there always seems to be about 400 different trivia games. There's music trivia, TV trivia, pub quizzes, guess the song I'm humming, retro movie, DVD guessing game, there's almost too many to list. On the surface, most trivia games seem pretty straightforward, and the quality of the product essentially boils down to how good are the questions in the box. The catch-all behemoth that sits atop those piles and piles of quiz games then has to be the big-name classic Trivial Pursuit, a game that promises a huge collection of questions in multiple categories and with a set of rules that forces you to answer at least one question in each category correctly to be able to take a chance at the win. The promise with these games is the idea that whoever wins is the ultimate boffin champion who knows all the things and is the Lord High Lord of Intelligence. There's 2 problems with that though. 1, it's not true. Being good at trivia is essentially a memory test. How many random facts that you've heard, and can you remember the specifics? Problem 2, if you're not a trivia expert, good lord is it boring. Being asked a question you have absolutely no way of answering doesn't really fill you with excitement, and it can turn into one of the longest and more tiring game experiences of your life. With every time that you're finally asked the question that will earn your team a point, it's completely beyond you, and you have to start all over again. Quizzes aren't a bad concept in general though. Trivia can be fun, and it's a good feeling to know things. I'll recommend a replacement. Linkee though asks not just how many facts that you know, but also if you have the abstract thinking ability to be able to see the pattern that they present. Each Linkee card has 4 little trivia questions that'll be asked out loud for the entire group to hear by whoever's turn it is to play the question master. And these questions are pretty simple. Which 2 colours make up the Canadian flag? red and white. What are the Sun-Made company famous for selling? Raisins. Oh, here's a callback. The orange properties in Monopoly are Bow Street, Great Marlborough Street, and Watt Street? Vine Street. Finally, which song about a drink was written by Neil Diamond but was a hit for UB40? Red, red wine. Okay, awesome. All 4 answers. How many points do I get? None? Oh. Yep, zilch, because the points don't come from knowing the answers, they come from knowing what links every answer you've said so far. Did you guess what it was for this one? Grapes. Red and white, raisins, vines, red wine. It seems simple now that you've heard the answer, right? Linkee rewards players who think outside the box, and whilst you'll definitely get most of the way by being able to answer trivia questions, it'll only provide the building blocks for what the true answer is. From there, you need to stretch your creative muscles to get over the finish line and before your opponents get there first. Linkee is all played in real time, so if you can work out the link in just 1 or 2 clues, then you'll be sailing. But each player or team only gets to guess once per question card, so be careful you don't trip yourselves up. Linkee is fast and fun without being too weighted towards the boffins in the family, which makes it great for reclaiming the enjoyment in question-related shenanigans. If you're itching for some trivia guessing gameplay but are sick of Uncle Steve raking in 1 million points every year because he somehow knows the national flower of Azerbaijan, then Linkee might just be the one for you. Well, there you have it. 3 ancient tyrants slain and usurped by better newer games. Okay, just kidding. If you like the classics, that's absolutely fine, but I hope we've provided some nice alternatives for you if you're getting a little tired of them. But that's not the only recommendations that we have here on Dicebreaker. In fact, we've got an absolute treasure haul ourselves of fantastic videos with all sorts of great games here on our YouTube and even more on Dicebreaker.com. So be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified when a new video goes live. If you're looking for a little treat yourself this Christmas time, then you can go to Dicebreaker.myshopify.com to get access to some exclusive Dicebreaker merch and support the channel. But before you do that, let me just say, have an absolutely wonderful Christmas or whatever you're celebrating this year, and we'll see you in the new year. Oh, and also, have a lovely day.